All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is What's New in Supply Chain Management Wave 1 2022 edition. My name is Erin and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. The session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you are agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within about 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout the presentation. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Krupke and Nichole Gump, Senior Fast Track Solution Architects, and Zach Greenvoss, Principal R&D Solution Architect. Nichole, over to you to kick us off today.
Thanks, Erin, and welcome everyone to our latest installment in the What's New in Supply Chain Management for Dynamics 365. This will cover our Wave 1 2022 timeframe, so the major release that we just had in April. So let's get to it. We are starting, as we have been doing, with a riddle for you today to think about as we present. So our question is, what software does a gardener use for presentations? So think about that. We'll come back to the answer at the end of the presentation. Let's go to our agenda. Today, we're going to cover an overview of the new features and functionality available in this wave. We will dive deeper into a few of the features and do a demo. We will then go over an FAQ on the planning optimization adoption, as well as an FAQ on the modern warehouse mobile app adoption. And then we will have time for some live Q&A at the end. So as Erin mentioned, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Zach will be helping Anne and I moderate throughout, as well as moderating that live Q&A at the end. So let's start with an overview. So we have split the overview into areas within the core application. So that's what we consider Dynamics 365 supply chain management. And then the following slide will be on our add-in services. So let's start with what's in the core application. In the inventory and logistics area, we have some enhancements to existing features. This includes enhancements to the GS1 barcode scanning, as well as hazardous material shipping. And then we have a net new feature for packing work, and this is actually the feature I'm going to be demoing. In the manufacturing area, we have enhancements to existing features that include several additional configurations for the production floor execution interface. And then we have some net new features around the ability to register material consumption, the availability of new views, as well as support for catch weight items on the production floor execution interface. And then in our planning area, we have enhancements to existing features for subcontracting support. And then net new features around centralized calendar maintenance, the optimization of existing supply suggestions, as well as the planned orders simplified form that's now GA that we mentioned in the last What's New Tech Talk that was in preview. So let's move from the core application to our add-in services. So with inventory visibility, we have some enhancements where we now support WMS-enabled items for your on-hand queries through inventory visibility. And some net new features coming in this wave around available to promise and inventory allocation These are two major topic areas we've been hearing from some of our strategic customers that are using the inventory visibility service today. And then with global inventory accounting, this is a new service and it leverages the Power Platform to value inventory with different currencies and different costing methods. So we're utilizing Power BI for the insights and analytics into your inventory accounting transactions. All right, so let's move into more in-depth feature reviews. So what we're going to cover that's generally available is I'm going to start with the inventory and logistics space and cover those enhancements around hazardous materials, as well as the GS1 barcode scanning support. And then I'm going to demo that net new feature on packing work. And then I'm going to hand it over to Anne for manufacturing. And she is going to go over material consumption and reservation in the production floor execution interface, as well as the new My Day view. And then she's going to do a recap of some of the production floor execution features that have been released kind of outside of our major release timeframes. So let's jump into the inventory and logistics features. So for hazardous materials, there is an existing feature that if you have enabled it and are using it, we now have an additional feature called hazardous materials enhancements that can be enabled. And when you do that, you're going to get some additional functionality around your master data. So like product information management, as well as reporting for our shipping documentation and the usability within the UI. And so those examples include, for master data, we now have the ability to do a flashpoint declaration for our goods. We have an expanded free text description field for stowage. And then we also support translations for the descriptions of the hazardous goods as well. In the reporting area, we have incremental enhancements to all of these reports. So your carriage of merchandise by road, your verified gross mass, IATA shippers declaration, multimodal dangerous goods declaration, as well as the shipment summary report. So for example, that CMR report now includes a summary line item for your non-hazardous goods that might be shipping on the same load as your hazardous goods. Of course, if your hazardous goods shipping constraints allow that, we now have a summary line item on the CMR for non-hazardous goods. And then for the usability enhancements, this includes from within the UI, if you are in the all loads, load details, or shipments forms, you now have direct links to the hazardous goods shipping documentation mentioned above from the action pane on any of these forms. So that's our support for hazardous material shipping. So let's move to GS1 barcode scanning. This is another one that is an enhancement of an existing feature. So if you have the GS1 barcode scanning feature enabled today, we now have a new feature called Enhanced Parser for GS1 barcodes. And what you get when you enable this is some extended support for scanning GS1 barcodes on the warehouse mobile application. So what this includes is we're now following the GS1 general specification algorithm for parsing the symbol data and validating the data. We are now using the longest prefix that matches the configured application identifiers. So previously you had to specify the maximum length as a configuration field for the application identifier, and that is no longer the case. You can also now configure decimal application identifiers by using the letter N to represent any number of decimal precision. So previously, if you had, say, a 1 decimal precision and 3 and 5, you would have to configure 3 separate application identifiers for those varying decimal precisions. And now you can just configure 1 with the letter N versus the 1, 3, and 5. There is also a fix in here for an issue where some encoded data was being incorrectly interpreted as field data. And then maybe most importantly within this feature is this parser is now a separate class, and it can be reused and provides an extensibility point for manipulating any scanned data before it is input into the workflow fields within the warehouse mobile application. So I'm sure you can see this extends beyond just our use case of scanning GS1 barcodes at this point, with this now being in a separate class that can be extended. Okay, those are enhancements to GS1 barcode scanning support. So let's move to one of our net new features in the inventory and logistics space. And this one is for the packing work. So the feature name here is packing work for packing stations. And when you enable this feature, we get a new work order type called packing, and it is created anytime that you deliver picking work. So that could be sales order picking or transfer order picking. If the put location is to a packing station, then we now get packing work created that represents that item and quantity. So you'll see on the right, I have a screenshot of transfer issue. So this is transfer order picking work that I have completed in that first line. And then since I put that transfer picking work to a packing station, you'll have to trust me on that. You can't see it in the screenshot. It creates this second line for packing work now that represents that same A001 item and 12 pieces that I picked and put to my packing location. Don't worry if this screenshot is a little small or hard to follow. I will demo this live here in just a minute. So the new packing work is linked to the individual load lines. And so what this really is allowing us to do is to partially ship any items that we may have packed, incompletely. So if I have these 12 pieces and I only pack 10 of them into a box, I am able to actually ship out those 10 and leave the remaining 2 on this packing work now. So this feature supports, with that partial shipment, the existing feature for confirm and transfer. So that allows us to decide what to do with those remaining 2 pieces in my previous example that I would have left on my packing work. I can either cancel them if my customer has decided that they don't need them, they'll reorder them later. Or if I'm going to maybe have some incoming inventory or find some non-damaged inventory, then I'm going to go ahead and ship those remaining 2, but on another load later on, then I can choose to just split those out into a new load so that I can ship today what I have today, which would be the 10 pieces in my example. So that confirm and transfer feature already exists. It's actually been there for quite some time. There's a link to the documentation on that feature here. But what was not supported in that feature was the ability to use the packing workflow within WMS and then do this confirm and transfer or partial load shipping. So this new feature for packing work enables us to do that. So as I said, let's go to a live demo. In supply chain, we like to do our live demos. It keeps us honest. So let me bring up my Contoso environment here. I am in the USMF legal entity, and I'm going to go ahead and walk through that scenario that I showed in the screenshot. So let's start with, I'll go to inventory management and let's start with a transfer order. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one. I'm going to ship from this 24 warehouse, which is WMS enabled, to another warehouse in my legal entity. And I'm going to add a a WMS enabled item here to my transfer order. So I'll go ahead and follow that example through that I had in this screenshot. So if I have a transfer quantity of 12, I'm going to go ahead and just reserve these items automatically here on the line. That way I can do, I'm going to go ahead and just release to warehouse directly here from my transfer order. And you can see that it says it created work. Without leaving the transfer order, I can just go to the warehouse work details to see that work. So you can see at this point in time, I don't have any packing work yet. I've just got my transfer issue picking work, but it is going to be put down to a packing location. So once I complete this, then I should see that the system creates the packing work. So let me bring up my mobile app. Hopefully you can see that mobile app there. Let me switch back to the system because I want to grab my work ID. Because when I log into the mobile app, what I am going to do is go ahead and do the transfer picking to complete that work. So I'm logged in. I'm at my main menu here. I'm going to go to outbound and I'm going to scroll down and go to transfer pick. You can see some other features we've discussed in the past about the mobile app popping up here. These are our app step instructions. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss that. I'm going to scan my work ID to start my pick, and it's going to ask me to scan. My picking floor location is license plate controlled. So I'm going to scan a license plate. It's going to assign a target license plate for me because I am not taking the full license plate quantity with me. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm that target license plate that it assigned. And then it's telling me to deliver this 12 pieces to the pack location. So this is really the trigger for creating that packing work. So now it says my work is complete. I'm going to go ahead and get out of my app and go back to the system here. So if I refresh my work form, now you see that the transfer pick is closed. And again, because it was put to a packing station, I now have this packing work that's been created by the system, and it represents those 12 pieces that I put down. So if I copy this target license plate that was created, I'm going to use that to go into my packing workflow. So let's go to warehouse management, and under packing and containerization, I can enter my manual packing form. It's going to default my packing station that I'm working in based on my worker record. So I can just say okay to log in. And I'm going to scan that target license plate from the pick to initiate this. And if I scroll down, I should be able to see the item and quantity that's sitting at my packing station. And this is correct, my 12 pieces here. So let's go with our example that we talked through in the previous slide, which is that if I just create a new container, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, it's just assigning a container ID for me. I'm going to go ahead and just put 10 quantity of this item into this container. So maybe there were 12 delivered to the packing station, but maybe 2 were damaged, and I don't want to put them in the box and ship them to the customer. But I can pack 10, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to close that container with just the 10. I'll get the system weight and say okay to close the container. So now, if I look at the containers for the shipment for my pack form, I should be able to see that container record that I packed with the 10 pieces. My shipment status is still in process because I've got 2 remaining pieces that are technically on this load line right now that I have not yet packed. So it's not in that loaded status that we would typically want to see before we confirm our outbound shipping and complete that process. So what I can do is go to this load. So let's say maybe we've contacted our customer or we just know that this customer accepts partial shipments. So even though we've only partially completed this, we want to go ahead and ship them this 10 quantity that's in this container. What I can do is I'm going to utilize the existing confirm and transfer feature, which means I need to toggle on this allow load split during ship confirm. When I enable this parameter, it's going to prompt me when I confirm my outbound shipment to decide whether I want to split the remaining 2 onto a new load, meaning I'm going to fulfill them later, or do I just want to go ahead and cancel that unfulfilled quantity? Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Here's the pop-up. So I can say I want to split it to a new load or cancel it if I'm not going to fulfill these if my customer has agreed to that. So if I'm splitting to a new load, I want to show you what that looks like. So now you can see, even though my load status was in process and I confirm my outbound shipment, typically you wouldn't be able to do that because it has to go from loaded to shipped. I was able to go from in process to shipped because I split the remaining quantity to a new load. So I was able to confirm, and you can see if I scroll to the right here, it uploaded or updated this load line to have only the 10 pieces that were in my container. And if we go back a little bit further, you'll be able to see, well, if I refresh this form, that's going to go away because that container has now been shipped out. So it's no longer sitting there at packing. But if I back up a little bit further out of my packing form, let's go back to that transfer order and see what this looks like now. So I'm going to go back to the transfer order I created. And I'm going to go back from the warehouse and look at the work detail. So now this shows us we had the pick of the 12 pieces and the packing work that was initially created for those 12 pieces when I put it down to the packing station had the full 12 pieces, but now it has the 2 remaining pieces that were not yet packed. And now I have additionally a packing work record that represents the container that I did pack with the 10 pieces. So essentially this packing work order type is supporting the splitting of that load line quantity and the ability to do the partial shipment. You could not do this previously if you were packing into containers and then trying to split your load into, multiple loads for partial shipping. So that's what's available now. I do want to point out that unlike all of our other work order types, this packing work order type is only used by the system. So you will not see it if we go into warehouse management setup under our core configurations. If we look at like work templates, typically within the work order type dropdown, you would see all of the available types. Packing does not show up here. And please don't confuse it with packed container picking. I know that's confusing, but that's the work order type that supports the movement of a closed container after a packing station to something like a staging location before it goes to the bay door. So not to be confused with that. So it does not show up in these drop downs, and it does not show up in the location directive work order type drop down either. So you cannot configure anything behind this packing work order type. It's simply being used by the system as you pick and put to a packing station and complete that manual packing process. Okay. So that's the demo on the packing work order type. And now I'm going to hand it over to Anne to go through the manufacturing features.
Thanks, Nichole. We'll start by talking to the feature that was added to the production floor execution interface to consume and reserve materials. This was part of our release in 10.0.25. There are 2 features associated with this functionality, both of which are still in preview. We have one feature for non-WMS items and another for WMS-enabled items. As you can see in the screenshot, this form in the production floor execution interface allows workers to register the consumption of materials, i.e. post pick lists in real time, including capturing batch and/or serial numbers that they're consuming. It also lets workers use the reserve materials functionality from the production floor execution interface as needed. For more details about how to set this up or how it works, you can refer to the link at the bottom of this slide. And another new feature that was added in production floor execution is the My Day view for the production floor execution interface, which was added in 10.0.27. The feature name is My Day view for the production floor execution interface. And as you can see in the screenshot here, the view in this feature lets the logged in worker see all their registrations for the current date. It includes a date picker that lets you change the date and see registrations for other days. On the top right of the screen, we can see the current balances for paid time and overtime, absence, and paid absence, which is based on the approval calculations that were run in the time and attendance module. And finally, on the bottom right, this view shows us the balances for the worker for vacation time, etc., as defined by the statistical balances in the time and attendance module. For more information on how this feature works, you can refer to the link on that slide. So while we're only covering 2 of our production floor execution features, I want to take a minute to review the full list of features that have been released for PFE since it was initially introduced. You can see them here. I won't read through all of them, but you can see the different features that have been added, and each of these has a link behind it. So when we publish the presentation, you'll be able to look at the information. One of the reasons we're talking about this today is, as a reminder, the production floor execution interface was always meant as the next evolution of our job card device, which we have in D365. As of April 2022, the job card device has been deprecated, which means it's no longer in support, and users should switch to the production floor execution interface instead. If you have questions or looking for more information, you can refer to the Microsoft Doc article for deprecated or removed features in SCM. And now we're going to pivot and we're going to do a refresher on planning optimization. In the release notes for Wave 1 2022, we saw a large number of features coming in for support in planning optimization. So I want to make sure we're taking some time to have a refresher on what it is and address some of the frequently asked questions that we've been hearing recently about planning optimization. First, let's recap what is planning optimization. Planning optimization is an add-in service for Dynamics 365 SCM that is intended to replace classic master planning. It's included in the licensing for SCM and does not incur additional costs for users. As a note, because this is an LCS add-in service, it's only going to be available in Tier 2 or higher environments. By running our master planning on a separate workload, planning optimization allows companies to run master planning much more quickly and therefore more frequently, addressing our longstanding performance constraints with classic MRP. Since planning optimization was introduced, the product team has been working on providing full feature parity with classic MRP in our new service. Currently, we support most distribution scenarios, and as detailed in the release notes for Wave 1 of 2022, the majority of our remaining scenarios for manufacturing are slated to be completed by October 2022. It's also important to note that the net new features which have been added to the master planning module, such as priority-based planning, are only compatible with planning optimization and will not be compatible with classic MRP. Probably the most frequently asked questions we hear from our customers is around the removal from classic MRP from Dynamics. Let's review now the different stages in the removal process and the timelines that have currently been announced. The first step in features being removed from the product is deprecation. Distribution scenarios in classic MRP have been deprecated as of April 2021, and manufacturing scenarios were deprecated in April 2022. Each of these dates were announced a year or so in advance of the deprecation. Now, what that means is not that the functionality is removed, but that the support of bugs or other support tickets in the functionality is greatly reduced. Although, of course, exceptions are made for bugs in features that we don't yet have parity in planning optimization with. If you run classic MRP in your environment, you'll receive a warning message that tells you it's deprecated and that you need to move to planning optimization. However, classic master planning will still generate planned orders in that environment. If you're not able to adopt planning optimization yet, you can request an exception from the product group, which would prevent the warning message from occurring when running classic MRP. But of course, it's important to remember that while classic MRP will still work, even though it's deprecated, it's not going to be compatible with any of our new features or features that are on the roadmap, like priority-based planning or DDMRP. The next step after deprecation would be removal of the functionality from the system. Before anyone starts panicking, I want to make sure that we note removal has not been announced for classic MRP, and there are no plans to remove it until all of our customers are successfully able to adopt the new service. Once that goal is achieved, even when removal is announced, it won't be effective for 12 to 18 months from the announcement date, which will allow our customers plenty of time to plan their transition to planning optimization. Again, I want to stress that this is not something that has been announced or has any date assigned currently. We should be aware that it could be coming down the road. For more information on the process regarding requesting extensions, you can refer to the link at the bottom of this PowerPoint slide. Now let's quickly walk through the high-level steps to follow when we're looking at implementing this new add-on service. The first thing to do is to run the planning optimization fit analysis in an environment that's representative of your production configurations. This feature outputs a list of your configurations which are not yet supported in the planning optimization service, if any. Once you have those results, you should cross-check them with the documentation on the Microsoft Docs site. The fit analysis tool does not capture 100% of the differences between classic MRP and planning optimization, so you need to make sure you do your research on those details about the differences. The documentation can also help you understand the timelines for any features that you're still waiting on so that you can appropriately plan your adoption process. Once you're comfortable that feature parity is required, or that's required is there, you can install the planning optimization add-in via LCS into a non-production environment. We recommend then that you run classic MRP in your testing environment, and then you enable planning optimization and run that and compare the results of the two runs. This will allow your business to validate the results of the run and identify any differences between the two that either need to be resolved or can be accepted based on changes in the service. Once testing is complete, then you can install and enable the add-in in your production environment and go from there. It's important to note that when you enable planning optimization, it's effective for all items and all legal entities. You cannot have a subset of entities running planning optimization. It's all of your legal entities. And lastly, one of the roadblocks for adoption with customers can be if they have customizations that impact how classic MRP planning logic works. Since planning optimization is in a separate service from Dynamics, we are not able at this time to customize the logic inside the planning engine itself, although we can still manipulate inputs or outputs of planning. The link shown here at the bottom of the screen provides guidance on creating extensions that are part of the planning process with planning optimization. And finally, I will leave you all with some additional resources to help guide you on your planning optimization journey. The first link is to a 2-part TechTalk series produced by the product group last year, which covers more about what planning optimization is and how the architecture works. Next, we have the Yammer group for planning service, which you can use to ask questions of the product group and the user and partner community. The product group also occasionally posts updates about new releases to the planning optimization service. And finally, here's the general link to the Microsoft documentation around the planning optimization service. With that, I'll hand it back to Nichole.
Thanks, Anne. So similarly to what Anne just walked through with the planning optimization service, we're going to walk through a short FAQ on the modern warehouse mobile app adoption. So you can see here from my background, we have kind of an evolution of where we've been with the warehouse mobile application, all the way back to our old RF device to what we now consider our legacy black and green screen app, and moving towards our new modern blue and white screen app. So let's talk about the warehouse mobile app adoption. So when did we announce the deprecation of the legacy app? So actually, it was a year ago. In April 2021, we announced that we would deprecate the legacy app with support ending in April 2022. So that was just last month. So that was after we released the warehouse management mobile app. That's our modern blue screen app, and the supporting features that were released in version 10.0.17 of Dynamics 365 supply chain management. So the question we often get is, do I have to transition to the modern app? So if you are using the legacy app currently, it can continue to be used, much like we talked about with the classic MRP. However, we do highly recommend that you transition to the modern app. It is a complete replacement. It's a completely new app, but it's using the same underlying framework that's intentional to make the migration easier. But the two apps can be run side by side to help you with user adoption and training so that end users can learn to use the new app interface. It is important to note, though, that the legacy app, since we announced the deprecation, has had limited support. And as we said, support has ended as of last month. And that we are highly recommending that you move to the modern app because any net new features, much like in planning optimization, are only going to apply to the modern app experience. So, final question that we hear is the legacy app still going to be available for download? And actually, as of this week, so May 2022, the legacy app can no longer be downloaded from the Microsoft Store or the Google Play Store. So that legacy app, which was called Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations / Warehousing, it was a blue icon with a little fork truck. That's our black and green screen legacy app. It is no longer available for download. Okay. And with that, we've made it through the feature reviews and our FAQs on planning optimization and the warehouse mobile app. So I'm going to turn it over to Zach for any Q&A.
Hey, Nichole. We do have a question or two. We have a question around packing work. And is there a parameter to basically disable partial packing?
No. There's no parameters around the packing work other than, maybe let me bring up my system again here. I am in my Contoso environment here. You'll see, let me collapse this to make it a little easier. Under warehouse management, setup and packing, when you enable this feature, you get this additional form. It's called packing station setup. And you can see that this is the only parameter that enables the creation of this packing work. So you enable the feature, you come into this form, you create a new record for the warehouse and specific packing location, right? So even if you have multiple packing lines, you could technically just set up one or a subset of these packing locations, and then you can decide whether or not you want to create packing work. So you can see here that if you unselect it, that the system isn't going to create this packing work. It would kind of be the old behavior where there's no packing work record created in the background.
I mean, I answer this a little bit. I mean, if you don't want to support partial packing, it seems like maybe you only want to support 100% fulfillment.
Yeah, I would say that's probably bigger than just packing in total. Yeah, you probably want to have a fulfillment policy in place that says, you know, you have to have 100% of the quantity before you ship. And then in that instance, I would assume that you also have not enabled the confirm and transfer feature because you wouldn't want to be splitting loads if you're not allowing partial shipments. Yeah.
Okay. And then we have another question. This came in during the demo, so I think it's definitely related to that. But after the load was split following the ship confirm, does the shipment get split or just the load?
So the shipment actually contains load lines. So same, right? I'll go ahead and show you. Let's go back to that. Maybe let's go from the transfer order again to look at that subset of work that's related to this, because I don't think I specifically pointed it out here in today's demo. But so what happened, right, was that we have this open packing work. And if I scroll over, what you're going to see is that it is now assigned to a new load ID that I split it onto, right? So the original load that had my transfer order line is also the one that's tied to the 10 pieces that I did go ahead and pack and ship. But when I did enable the parameter for allowing the load split, that's our confirm and transfer, and I said, yes, go ahead and split it versus canceling, right, the unfulfilled quantity, that I got a new load. And I will say that with that feature that allows the split of the load, the system essentially uses the existing load. So this, in this case, this ending with 87 as a template, right, for kind of all the settings on the load, and it copies that over to the new load with the remaining quantity. So if I would actually go into this load, and you'll see it's a new shipment ID as well, but we don't have shipment lines, right? There's no concept for that in WMS. It's all load lines that are on a shipment. But if I click into this, you'll see that it now says this load line, the one that has been split, only has the 2 remaining pieces. And I could actually go back into my packing workbench, right, with this remaining target license plate ID that I had. If I go back to packing, and I could essentially just follow this through, right? If those were really damaged and I had somebody kind of bring me replacement inventory for these 2, and now I want to go ahead and pack them, right? I can just kind of continue this process through new container. I pack the remaining 2. I go ahead and I close it, and I just follow this through essentially on my new load. So it's really just allowing me, right? This feature is allowing me to pack and to do the partial shipments if my business or if my customers allow that, right? So obviously, if we're in a scenario where it has to be 100% fulfillment, then really neither of these features apply, right? But in the event where you can ship partials, that's when we would go ahead and utilize these features. So in this case, yep, we don't need to split anything, but we can go ahead and in this case, everything is complete. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Nichole. I'm just looking through. I think the rest we will answer just in the chat. So I think we are good.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. All right. So let's go back to our presentation. So if you remember from the beginning, our riddle today was, what software does a gardener use for their presentations? And our answer is PowerPoint. Ha ha ha. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining. As always, reach out to Anne or I. Our emails are up here, as well as our LinkedIn contacts. We're always happy to hear from you, answer any questions directly. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Erin to close us out.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Nichole. I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We would love to get your feedback on today's session and hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you in advance for your participation and taking that for us. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalks Community Dynamics page within about 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and of course to the audience for joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you may be.